All right, you guys, appreciate you all jumping on. Happy Friday. Today we have the pleasure. We got Jonah Kamara joining us. Excited for this. Jonah, how many times have you hit Hall of Fame?
Um, 3 times.
Three times. Three-time Hall of Fame producer. So if
Yeah.
you're
And it's
wondering,
Jonna.
Jonah, sorry,
Yeah,
Jonah,
no, that's
Jonah.
okay.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
three
people
times.
mess that up a
Almost
lot.
four. I'll be hitting Hall of Fame probably in the next month soon. So
I love it.
yeah.
People call me Bruce, so I hear you. You know what I mean? Um, so almost four-time Hall of Fame producer. So if you're wondering, what's the credibility behind what she's about to pour into you guys, that's it. That's all you need to know right there. So again, like I was telling you, this is a group, 90% of us on here within our first 90 days or so. So that's just kind of your audience. And if you could, I got some questions for you, but if you could just kind of kick it off, just give us a little bit about, the background, what you're doing before, what led you to the industry and FFL and how you got rolling with this thing.
For sure. So I've been in FFL for about 6 years. Before that I was basically had a house cleaning business and I had a couple of kids at that point. So I was for a while running my own housekeeping business with my baby and I like had him on my back and he started getting really heavy and I was like getting really tired of it. So I was like, okay, I got to figure something else out. So I got a 9 to 5 working as a bank teller. And after like a month and a half of that, I was just like, this sucks. Like, I don't ever want to work in corporate America or like in four walls every day. So, I started looking for opportunities. And even that, with that job, like I was getting paid like 800 bucks bi-weekly, and it was just not even enough to really like have a life for my family, right? So, we were living in a granny unit behind somebody's house. And so I started researching opportunities. I started researching opportunities and I was actually on a Facebook group called Millionaire Single Mom. And I just asked in there, and this agent with Symmetry, this mom, she told me about the industry.
Hmm.
So, that was my practice IMO. I started over there. But as soon as she told me about it, I was like, this sounds too good to be true. This is crazy. And then, I learned more about it and I was like, okay, this sounds like something I can do. So I got licensed right away. Um, and for me, so I quit the bank to go nanny for a friend of mine in Oregon because she was going through like a divorce from this like really wealthy guy, and it was like a really ugly divorce. And so I went to go nanny for her for the summer, and she was paying me. And then we had gotten a house together in California where I lived, which had like a $2,600 rent. And and then her mental state wasn't right. And so we had to part ways. And she was just like, well, I'm not paying for the house anymore. Like you're on your own with that. So all of a sudden I was like, I didn't have a job. All I had was an insurance license. And now I had a $2,600 rent that I had to come up with. So at that point, I think I got like 200 aged mortgage protection leads, like the old mailers,
Yeah.
and I just sat down and started dialing and, booking appointments. This is when I was in the field. So my very first day, I made like $2,000. I sold like two out of the three houses I went to. And it was like the biggest celebration of my life. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this opportunity, exists and I made this much money in one day. So, after that, I was all in. And I never had a transition from a job. It was just like, for me, all of my success in this industry has come from me being in situations with my back against the wall and just doing what I had to do. So that's kind of, my background, how I got started. My first few years in the industry, I was kind of living commission to commission, figuring things out. The leads we used to have and the systems, it's just, you guys are so blessed to come into this industry with like the leads and the technology and everything that we have now, because it was not like this 6 years ago. It was, much more of a grind on the leads that we had. They weren't as good a quality. Um, but so yeah, I mean, I was basically living commission to commission. I didn't really have any savings for a while. And about 3 years into the business, I got with an agency that did have a system, and I kind of just applied everything that I learned over those years. And then I just, spent a bunch of money on leads. This is a whole another story, but like
Yeah.
I had my fourth child and, it was like another situation where I had my back against the wall. I had a custody case. So I just like took more than half of the money I had, threw it into like new leads, got a dialer, got, a bunch of appointments. And then I started producing like I had my record month after I had my baby. It was like 70,000 that I did like literally the month after I had a baby. And then it was like 100,000 months after that. And that's kind of where I got to this level. But
I do want to touch on that. I'm going to come back to that because I remember when you joined our team call, it's probably like 2 years or so ago now, and you kind of talked about that time where you went from whatever you were spending on leads, and then 1 month you just went crazy with lead spend, and then things kind of like kicked off from there. So I want to circle back to that, but you mentioned something. You had 3 kids when you started in the industry, right? And I assume
mhm.
they're all pretty young.
I had two when I
Okay.
started. Yeah.
2, but then 3 and then 4. So I'm sure you have a system now of, care and all that type of stuff, but we all got stuff going on outside of business, right? So like what did you do? How did you balance giving yourself enough time to do what you need to do to create the income, develop the skill to make this business happen, but still balance the young kids and all that? Like how did you start, and then what have you kind of developed it to continue to allow yourself to have time to commit to this business?
Sure. So yeah, at the beginning, right, it's like I couldn't afford a private nanny, obviously starting out. But it really started with my mindset, right? Like I've always had the mindset that where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm super resourceful. And, I just was like, I'm gonna figure out a way to make this work. So for me, it was like it started with getting subsidized childcare,
Mm,
through the government, doing what I had to do to be able to get that. And then, I moved to Florida. I was like 6 months pregnant with my last child when I moved to Florida, so just about a little over 3 years ago, and I found Jillian, who's my nanny now. She makes a lot more than she did when she first started with me, but she was,
I
she
bet.
was like she was like 16 when she started with me, so she took, I had her work 40 hours a week for like $5 an hour, and she was fine with that. So she was helping me out, but there were a lot of times where I didn't have childcare and I would rely on my oldest to help
Mm,
out, or I would just have the baby like on my lap while I'm working. I would stand up in the kitchen with the baby on my back because you have to
wow.
stand up when you got him on your back like that,
Yeah.
It's like standing up at my high top table working, like whatever I had to do.
Whatever you had to do. It's
But then when
that's
I did have that big month, that's the important thing, guys, is scaling, because what can happen a lot of times, you'll have a big month and then go blow your money on paying off debt and things like that when you need to pour it back into your business. Like when I had that big month, like one of the most important investments I made was getting a bigger house so I could get a live-in nanny and have the in-home help, which is what I did, and then just continuing to I actually ended up getting like 2 or 3 dialers. I have 3 dialers now, but I got a second one, and I even got more leads. So that's the 100,000 came from me spending like 5,000 a week on leads,
right.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things you can do to buy back your time, right? You mentioned the dialers, the nannies, like so many things you do to kind of take some of that, stuff off your plate to give you the time necessary to be on the phones to do what we got to do, right?
Right.
So, what did that work look like? Like obviously, like you said, you didn't have the nannies, you didn't have the dialers, like it was all just grunt work in the beginning to get it to the point where one, you develop the skill, and then eventually the cash flow to be able to buy back your time and continue to scale. So like talk to us about like the schedule, you know what I mean? The work, like what does that look like to get yourself to that point where you now have the resources to buy back time like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's 12-hour work days, like every day. I mean, I clock into this like it's a regular job. You have to have that mindset. Like if I was my boss, would I fire me, or would I be happy with, how I'm showing up to work every day? So, for me that's just it. Like, I knew if I sat down and dialed and worked, I'm making money. So that's just what I
Yep.
did. I don't know. Like some people are very inconsistent with that, and it shows in their production, right? Like but this business, it is just, having enough people to talk to and having enough activity, um, and putting in the reps. And like I would say, even in that time, like it took me 3 years to develop the skills and the confidence. And like, it took me a while for that all to come together. And I actually felt it happen. There was like a certain point where it just all clicked. And it was like all the things that I learned, plus, the just all of it just like came together, and it was all of a sudden it was like I was like the senior underwriter who like just
Yeah.
I'm the professional here and I know what I'm doing. I have the posture and the ability to overcome all these objections, and it all just kind of came together for me, and like at a certain point in time. Yeah.
I told 100%. Now, there may be some folks on here that are thinking like, damn, 3 years, that's a long time to be
Well, I didn't
in
have a
something.
system, right? So
Right.
now you guys have a system. Like you're coming into the
100%.
agency. Yeah. So it doesn't have to take that long.
But what my question is, what kept you in it, right? Like what did you see in the industry and other people doing it? Like there had to have been something that was saying like, hey, because I feel like these days we're so the instant gratification is so much a part of what we do, right? If we're not crushing it in our first 90 days, then we're out. You know what I mean? And you see it a lot. There's a lot of turnover in this business. And it may has a lot to do with just the culture these days. But so what for you, like what kept you in it in those 3 years to give yourself the chance to get to that point where it clicked?
Well, I mean, even though I was living commission to commission, like I was still able to now afford a $2,600 rent
Right.
because I could get a $2,600 commission in one day. You know what I mean? So it was like, even though I didn't have a bunch of savings and I was still kind of just like making it by, I was still able to afford a bigger and better lifestyle than I ever had them before. You know,
Totally.
the max I could afford on rent before was like $800, right? So,
Yep.
and I was working from home, I was with my kids. So yeah, that was pretty much it. And then it's just like I've always like had it, like I've always like had this inner knowing that like I was gonna make this work and that, you know, like I would be wealthy one day, like the things would, you know, blossom financially for me at some point in my life if I just keep working towards this goal. So I think, you know, a lot of that boils down to just like having faith and knowing that, you know, you're not alone on the journey. There is a God that like loves everyone. And, you know, if you put your faith in God and you work hard and you just are, you know, you persevere when things get hard, when you have faith, like that is ultimately the defining factor of like when you'll have your breakthrough, you know, you just have to have that trust and keep working.
Yeah, I think yeah, gratitude for what you do have is huge. That's kept me in it many times when when I felt like wanting to quit. If you just take a step back and look at my bank account or what I made that month, it's like, well, I don't have any sort of innate talent, skill, or anything to make this kind of money anywhere else. So let me just push through it and keep it going.
Yeah.
You know what I
What am
mean?
I going to
So
go back to? The bank? No
right,
thanks.
100%. I love it. I want to get into some sales stuff, but just kind of just last thing on, getting this thing off the ground and getting started. Like what were you say some of the biggest challenges you faced early on, some of the biggest hurdles that you had to get over, to get to that point, like you said, where you had the breakthrough and you're like, all right, I know, like I'm gonna crush this thing. Like what were some of the biggest challenges you faced early?
I think the biggest challenge was like fear, honestly. Like fear, like I every single week I was literally terrified to buy leads. And I would always short, you know, I would always be conservative with how much I would buy. Like I wouldn't push myself beyond my comfort. And ultimately that was hurting me. And guys, I even still go through it now sometimes. Like if I've had a slow month or something, it's like, oh, I gotta spend another, you know, 4 grand on leads this week. Why not? Let me just cut it down to 3 grand this week. And then when I do that, it hurts my production, right? Like if I, you know, short myself on leads and I see how it actually directly impacts my business in a negative way. So it's like after Cancun, it kind of, because I was feeling a little bit burnt out before Cancun. After when I got back, it kind of just like reset my mindset, and I was just like, "What am I doing? Like messing around with my lead flow." So I started, you know, doing the 4 grand a week in leads again, and now I'm back to 15 to 25K a week again. So
I
it's
love
like
it.
yeah, and my mind, my mindset got like a little refreshed. I feel excited about talking to people. Sometimes I just get burnt out on like talking to people every day, you know.
Yep,
So, yeah.
100%.
Hmm.
It can be extremely repetitive. Um, you had what was it 2022 or 23 when you exploded you wrote damn near a million, right? Wasn't like 900,000 something?
Yeah, that was 2023.
Yeah.
I was number six in FFL. See my little number six trophy.
Yep.
So yeah, that was insane. Like I
So
just
and I think that I remember you being on a call like this and you telling that story of I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to at the moment that clicked, but I remember you saying like I decided to just kind of go crazy on leads and just it's just really cool to see like what happens when you bet on yourself like that and like you mentioned when you had your back against the wall and what that resulted in. You know what I mean? And to many
Mhm.
levels, like some of us need to just go from 500 to 1,000 a week or 250 to 500. So there's levels to it for sure, right? But talk to us about that story of like that decision to just bet on yourself, leads, dialers, because from what I remember when you've told it before, there was just like 1 month where you just kind of like pushed all the chips in and then it took off from there, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so I had my son in August of 2022. Yeah, 2022. And I also had a custody case happening all of a sudden. So, and then, I was like, I had to get a lawyer, right? So, and I wanted to get a good lawyer. I didn't want to get some, pro bono lawyer. So it was just like,
Right.
okay, I probably had like 2 grand in the bank at this point. So I was just like, okay, like I have to, work really hard and like make this happen. Like there was like a moment where I was like, do I pay my rent or do I buy the leads? And my mentor sometimes was like, you need to buy the leads and forget your rent for a second. And I'm like, okay, let me just buy leads. But but yeah, I literally worked, I was running appointments to the point that like I was started going into labor. And then we were in the hospital for like 5 days because my son we had to, there's like a little extra thing. And then when we got back out, it was like I was back to running appointments like
Mm,
literally the day after I got back with a newborn. But that, but with the custody case happening, it was September, like I said, the month after I had the baby that I wrote like 70K, and that was my record month. And and yeah, I had met somebody in the business who was just like, you just got to buy more leads, you know what I mean?
hmm
I was just like, well, maybe I'll just buy more leads, So like, I just kind of, yeah, I just put it on the line. I think that month, I
What
think I
were
spent,
you spending, and then what'd you spend that month?
right. So I was spending like 1,500 to 2,000 a week, right?
Okay.
And I was probably writing around 30,000 a month.
Okay.
And then like 20 to 30,000. And
Yep.
then the month that I did 70,000, I upped it to spending 3,500 a week or
Uh-huh.
3,000, something like that. And then that's when I wrote the 70,000. Um, and then that month I was able to save, like I managed to like save 12, I think 12 grand in my account, So then I just took like 8 grand of that and I poured it into like getting a second dialer. And then I dropped more mailers and I ended up spending like, I think like 5,000, or I don't remember exactly. It was like I think it was like 5 grand probably to drop like 7 or 8,000 mailers.
Mhm.
And then that's when I wrote 100K, and then I just kept doing that.
I love that.
Hmm.
Bet on yourself. I love it. That's huge.
Yeah.
Um, all right, let's get into some sales stuff. So, what kind of like piece together the sales call, right?
Hmm.
So when it comes to like when you first get somebody on the phone, what do you do to like, because you do all virtual sales, obviously, right? So like what are you doing to establish credibility? What do you view as like the tone or the posture to get them to want to take you seriously, want to stay on the phone with you? Like what do you feel like are the most important aspects to do that?
So I have my appointments like scheduled on my calendar. So they'll either pop it up on my Zoom room and I'm getting with them on Zoom, or I'm just calling them. I do like 50% Zoom, 50% telesale
Mhm.
typically, whatever they're more comfortable with. But yeah, I just say like, hey Bryce, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Okay. So my name is Jonna Camara. I'm the senior underwriter for the mortgage protection. My job is to go over this information with you. Now I wanted to verify a couple details here. So you have a new mortgage for 400,000, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay, and you're paying 33,000 a month, is that correct?
right.
Okay, perfect. So I'll explain to you a little bit about what I do and what the process is with the mortgage protection. So as a state licensed underwriter, I work with all of the A-rated insurance carriers in the state of Florida that offer the mortgage protection plans. And my job is to be like the eyes and ears for the insurance carriers. They don't require any medical exam or blood draws or anything like that. They just have me talk to you to verify your eligibility and to go over your options with you. So I just need to ask you some questions to see what type of mortgage protection you may need, to see what would make sense for you, and to see what you qualify for. And then I can put together some options. If we find something that does make sense, all we can do today is submit an application to see if we can get you approved. Okay.
Okay.
All right, perfect. So, Bryce, do you know what mortgage protection is?
I just know it has something to do with covering your house if I die or get sick.
Exactly. Best case scenario, making sure if you were to pass away, the mortgage would be paid off. If you got sick, that you'd be paid out a substantial lump sum that, you can continue making your mortgage payments, covering your living expenses without any struggle. And there are some, long-term financial benefits with some of these plans as well, which we'll get more into, if you qualify for those options. Um, so who would your beneficiary be if something were to happen to you?
Uh, Probably my son.
Your son? Okay, perfect. And would that be important to you to make sure that if something, happened to you tomorrow, that the house would be paid off and left to him?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I want the house paid off for him so he doesn't have to deal with it.
Makes perfect sense. I'm a parent too. I have four kids, and I of course would also want my house paid off for my kids. So I completely get that, and my job is to help find a solution for that for you today, okay?
Okay.
All right. So I'm just going to collect a little bit of information. What do you do for work, Bryce?
I'm a police officer.
Okay, perfect. And then what would you say your approximate monthly net income is?
About 4,000.
Okay, perfect. And then if I'm being really thorough, you ask the annuity question. What do you have that acts like life insurance or would pay out to your family if you die? I'm not always that thorough, but um, do you have any other life insurance now, or like what do you have that acts like life insurance?
Well, I know like I have a through my job through the city, I have a policy.
Okay, gotcha. And so you just have work insurance, and then that goes away when you leave the job, right?
Uh, I'm not sure.
Well, with most life insurance, work policies, that is the case, unless it is a government job or something like that. So we'll just we'll just, go over some options, but typically, we do advise people to have personal private coverage in addition to any sort of like work insurance you have, because ultimately that is group insurance that's owned by your employer. And we want to have something that's gonna, last your entire life. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Okay. And then, I go over the health information, right? Like what's your date of birth, height, weight, meds. So assuming he's perfectly healthy. Okay, Bryce, it looks like you would qualify for our most, comprehensive mortgage protection plan, which is great. I'm gonna go over those benefits with you now. So with this plan, God forbid, if you were to pass away from any type of death or become terminally ill, it would pay out that 400,000, directly to you or your family. If you were ever diagnosed with a critical illness or a chronic condition such as cancer, heart attack, stroke, kidney disease, ALS, major organ failure, severe cognitive impairment, if you ever require substantial assistance from another person to help you with your daily living activities like eating, bathing, dressing, toileting, those types of things for a 90-day period or longer, you can file a claim and they'll pay out a lump sum up to 100% of the 400,000. Make sense?
Yes,
Perfect. And then, so that's, really, really good protection. Having protection against things like cancer is super important. I see cases all the time where people had cancer at some point in their life and it really ruined them financially. So it's really important to have those, living benefit protections as well. Now, in addition to those coverages, like I said, this plan, some of the plans do have those long-term financial benefits. This is one of them. So this policy is actually a permanent insurance. So, Bryce, categorically, mortgage protection falls under the life insurance umbrella. So, we're purposing this policy for your mortgage, right? Like this is the plan for your mortgage. But even beyond this mortgage, you can actually keep this policy in place as a permanent life insurance so that you have a solid, $400,000 death benefit that'll pay out to your family, even if you're 95 years old when you pass away. Does that make sense?
it does. Yep.
Yep, so that's a really nice feature as well. And, I promise when you're 60 and 70 years old, I get a lot of people who are 60 or 70 come to me looking for 200,000 of coverage. And guess what? They can't afford it. They can't qualify because it's ridiculously expensive and they
Right.
didn't think about setting up that substantial permanent insurance later on. So now, now they can only afford to get like 30,000 or 20,000 and they regret that decision. So this is a very nice time for you to make sure you have that in place for the long haul. Make sense?
It does.
Okay, perfect. And then in addition to that, this policy does also accumulate cash value. So a portion of those premiums every month actually go towards the cash value of the policy and creates like a savings account. So whenever the market is performing well, you get interest added to that cash value. On average, based off of a 20-year history, we see it at about 8%. And then later on down the line, say like in retirement, if you need access to the cash value of the policy, you can access that money, as needed if you need that money. Doesn't that make sense as well?
It does. Yep.
Perfect. All right. So did you have any questions about any of those benefits?
No, at this point, it's just kind of what it costs.
Okay. Well, let's see. So if we were to cover the full mortgage, the 400,000, Bryce,
Mhm.
that would be 167.50 per month.
Okay.
Or we could do half of the mortgage, which is, the more budget friendly option. And it still works for protecting your family because, if something were to happen to you, they can pay off half of the mortgage and refinance the remainder, get a lower payment. But in your case, as a dad, you probably want the full thing since you are, covering your kid. But, something's better than nothing. So if we were to do the 200,000, that one would just be $85.50 a month.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So Bryce, which of those options feels like the most suitable and affordable that you'd like to make the application for?
Um, well, I mean the 400 is doable, but I guess my question is this something that like I have to do with my mortgage?
Well, so that's actually up to your discretion. It's not required, but you did say it was really important to you to make sure the house would be paid off for your son, if something were to happen to you. So you have to ask yourself, is this a requirement for you to make sure your son is protected?
Mm,
You don't have to do it, but it sounds like it's something that's important to you, and I think it's something that you should prioritize in your budget.
mm, right. Okay. Yeah, I can do the 400 sounds good.
Perfect. All right. And just so you know, you do have a 30-day review period. If you do need to make any adjustments to that, you can, because at the end of the day, something's better than nothing. If you find it's out of budget, just let me know and we can adjust it downwards for you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and get that application started. Bryce, what is your middle initial?
I love it. That was fire. I threw that at you. The is I have do I have to because I've heard people ask you that before.
Yeah, they do that.
I don't know, you were unmuted a few days ago and somebody's like, "Well, do I have to do this?" And like you get that sometimes when you do mortgage protection, right? They see the ads, they're like, "Does this come with the mortgage? Like what is this?" And so I just thought you handled it well. To be like, "Yeah, just put it back on this is let's bring it back to what it's about, right? Which is your beneficiary, right? When people ask you dumb stuff like that, redirect it back to what we're on the phone. Matt, stay unmuted, dude. Um, what are we here for? You know, what I mean? What's the point of this? So that was money. And so if I'm brand new on this call, I might be looking at that like, I don't know, were you reading a script just now, or is that just all you just okay, so you have it down, and that could have been many different situations in terms of age, health, lead type, whatever the case is, right? But you have this structure of I do the same thing every time from A to Z. And then there's just some different things we do here and there depending on the client situation, right? So
Exactly.
if I'm new, I might be thinking like, how do I get to that point? Is it reps? Is it studying? Is it, watching videos? Is it reading a script? Like talk to the new agents about what you would advise them to get to the point where you have how the sale is going to go in your head A to Z. You know what I mean? Everything I'm going to say at what point, and then just kind of fill in the blanks based on the client situation.
So, we have a script, right? That's like the skeleton. That's like the structure that we know is tried and true that we follow. That's like the backbone of our presentation. And it's really important to follow it so you don't miss important things that you need to do to, close the sale and help the family. But also you have to remember that this is a conversation. It's like a consultation, right? You're there to help their family out. So you need to have, that kind of conversational aspect where you're asking them the right questions, finding out about their why, and just helping them, like helping them with the best thing that's for them, for what they're requesting. You're just there to fulfill a request, right? And fulfill a need. So a lot of times, like a lot of people like my script, they like my presentation because it's very simple. It's very to the point. Like, in the beginning, I asked them, I'm like, is this important to you? Like, do
Right.
you want to make sure the house is paid off if something happens to you? If they say, no, I don't care, I'm like, I challenge them a little bit. I'm like, why wouldn't you care? Like, this is your most valuable asset. And isn't don't you want to leave this behind to your family to create generational wealth if something happens? We don't know what can happen tomorrow. Like I'll challenge them a little bit, but if they really just don't care and they don't want to, then I just let them go. And I have, 14 other people to talk to. So, um, but yeah, I think that's really it. It's just, you follow the backbone, you have the conversation, and you just help the family, and you do it from a place of actually like caring about them, and you just are you thorough. And a lot of it too, guys, is like your confidence, your posture, your tonality. And that was like one of the most valuable things I learned, like watching other top producers on Zoom is like, okay, like I hear the tonality, right? The posture is like she's speaking like a professional. She sounds like somebody that I would trust to help me out with something. Because if you don't have confidence and you're like, oh, well, I don't, like they're going to be like, well, this girl doesn't know what she's talking about. I don't want her to help me do anything.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to
100%.
just fake it till you make it with that, like fake being confident. You know what I mean? Because the more money you make, the more leads you can buy, the more people you talk to, the more reps you get in, and the more that confidence will build naturally through experience.
100%. One thing that we work on a lot in this group is the building the why, right? Like digging in, building the why, bringing the value behind the plan. Because what I notice a lot of times, and I did this myself as a new agent, but now that we're in a position where we're helping agents, what I see a lot is kind of like skipping that step in the sale, right? It's like intro, financial inventory, straight to numbers, hoping they pick a plan based off liking the price or something like that, right? And there's this gap in the middle that I've been noticing a lot of, like designing the plan, building value. Like for this, it was the size of the mortgage, what's going to look like for my son if I don't do that type of stuff. So like talk to us a little bit about what you do to build value, design the size of the plan. So when you look at numbers, there's substance behind it, right? There's a reason why we're looking at this size plan and get maybe like what the consequence is going to be if we don't get that. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. So like with building value, again, that comes with like you speaking confidently about the solution that you're offering them, like making it seem like it's like the greatest solution, and actually giving them the best thing that's for them. Because if you're giving them the best thing, it's going to be easy to say, like, hey, I'm giving you a policy that gives you all of these benefits. Like, selling an IUL for mortgage protection is like there's so many benefits that offers them. It's like I'm like, okay, well, you can put that $165 in the savings account. You're going to get 0% interest. And if you die tomorrow, your mortgage won't be paid off. So it's like a win-win either way. You get to save some money and build a little cash and also make sure if you die tomorrow, the thing's paid off. Like,
Right.
how is that not a no-brainer? You know what I mean? So it's just kind of having that mindset, about what you're offering that makes them just kind of like be like, oh, you're right. That does make a lot of sense. Like,
Right.
thank you for this education and like this valuable service you're offering me.
Right.
Um, does that answer I guess I took a
Yeah,
lot.
and what I hear when you say that is like being willing to ask maybe some tough questions or challenge them a little bit. You know what I mean? And it's that like this call, like when I hear you talk with clients, they like you, you guys have a connection, but you're not best friends, right? And I can sometimes sense like some healthy tension in the call, right? Because you're asking them questions that they're probably on speakerphone, husband and wife looking at each other like, God damn, I can't believe she asked us that. You know what I mean? But like you have to get them to think like like to create that sense of urgency. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know, was that something that you had to work on? Is that something you learned? And like what do you recommend to
Yeah,
agents
I
to
mean,
get to
it,
that
it
point?
was a little uncomfortable, right, at first. And sometimes it still can be uncomfortable. Like sometimes I feel like I don't do enough digging into the why, even
Hmm.
still. But like, you know, you don't have to ask so many questions. It's just staying focused, always going like dragging the why through the entire appointment. But Bryce, didn't you say you wanted the house paid off for your kid? Like, what are we doing? This is what we're here to do. Like,
Right.
okay, this solution, is going to make sure that the house is paid off, for your child. Like, and then if they say, oh, well, I gotta look at my budget. I don't know if it's gonna fit. I'd be like, okay, Bryce, let's see. Let's see if it's gonna fit. So 165 a month. So Bryce, did you know it's actually only $5.50 a day to make sure that the house is paid off for your son if you die tomorrow? Like you do know when you go out of your house and you stop at Wawa and grab a pack of Skittles and a Sprite that actually costs more than what it costs to protect your son to pay off the house, right? So just so what you're saying is expensive. It's just a matter of like how we're prioritizing what we're spending our money on. So I want you to think of it in terms of daily, okay? When you walk out of the house, just make sure you don't spend that $5 on anything else and know that it's going towards making sure the house is protected. Does that make sense?
Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. So,
Respect.
prioritize protecting your family. Other expenditures are not on the highest priority. Do you agree?
100%. 100. Yes.
Okay,
I
great. I'm
love
glad we're
that.
on the same page.
I love that. 550 a day. Like when you put it like that, you know what I mean? That's one of those when you put it like that things. Just like, okay. I'm being dumb. My bad. I
Yeah.
love that.
It works so well. I started incorporating that like almost in every appointment just a couple months ago, and it's closed me so many deals just saying
Hmm.
that. Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna open up for questions in a sec. So guys, start to think of your questions. But last thing I have for you from a sales standpoint, actually two things. Um, again, I remember I think I'm not sure if it was this last convention or the convention before, but you won the Americo Award, right? Which
Yeah.
isn't I don't if I don't I may be wrong, but I don't think it's just writing the most Americo, but also like highest persistency.
Yes. Well, I don't think I have the highest persistency, but it was because I
So
had the biggest you first bonus.
the
But
biggest
they
you first
also
bonus.
said that, they love me and they just,
Well, yeah, all
one
that,
of
of
their favorites.
course. But
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 yeah,
so what I'm getting to is you don't get a you first bonus without hitting the without hitting the qualifications, right? Which is premium
right.
applied, 12 month, 6 month, all that. So like talk to us about persistency. You know, you sell a lot, but you keep a lot too. Like you're extremely profitable. So like how do you coach, how do you talk to new agents about how to not only, get to a point where you're selling at a high level, but you're remaining profitable while doing it?
So that comes with, it's a culmination of things, right? Like it is being that confident advisor, it's being that person that's really helping that family, making sure that they understand how they're being helped. Like I really emphasize a lot on like, when I'm giving them a product, like what we're doing, why we're doing it, why it's important, just solidifying that solution in their brain that that is something that they have to keep, because it's important and building good rapport, laughing with them, creating a connection, all of that really helps. And then I really like lock down my sale at the end. So what I say to tie down my
Yeah.
sale is, and I want to tell you guys what I say at the bank info too, because it's been working really well for me for
Let's
like
do
the
it.
past
Yeah,
year.
let's go
Yeah.
through banking to it's approved to tying it down.
Okay. Yeah. So, all right, Bryce. So, let's see. So once you're approved, they'll go ahead and issue the coverage immediately for you so that you're protected right away. The first premium will draft in about 1 to 2 business days, and then the following payments will come out on the 5th of each month. Okay.
Okay.
At that point, if there's an issue with that, they're going to tell me, oh, I don't get paid until the 10th. Can
Right.
you? And then I'll be like, okay, but I don't give them the option. Like we're getting you protected today. That first premium comes out in 1 to 2 days, and then the following payments on the 5th of each month. All right.
Okay.
Great. Okay, perfect. And now will you be using a checking or a savings account for the monthly premiums?
Checking.
Checking. All right. And then I just need you to grab me your routing and account numbers, please.
Okay.
Okay. So whatever, 555 666 da da da. So you
Yep.
gave me the numbers. All right, perfect. And then I go and fill out the, agent page. And I say, okay, Bryce, I'm going to go ahead and send you a text now. This is just sending you some of the consumer disclosures and then authorizing that you intend to be a party to an insurance application by providing me, your agent, the 6-digit code. Provide me the code. Okay, Bryce, I'm going to go ahead and submit this now, and then we'll see what the carrier says. Okay. So once they get approved, I say, congratulations, Bryce. We just secured, making sure that if something happens to you, that the house is paid off for your kids, you were approved for the full 400,000. So congratulations.
Sweet. Thank you.
It's a big deal. Now, a couple things before I let you go. So you'll get your policy in the mail in about 7 to 10 business days. It's going to be a nice blue book coming from America. By the way, I always have them mail the policy. I don't ask about emailing policies. I feel like,
Me too.
them getting the hard copy is important. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and have wait, where was I? Okay. So you'll get the policy in the mail in about 7 to 10 business days. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure you let your beneficiaries know that you have it and where you keep it and what it's for so that those benefits don't go unclaimed. If you get any other letters in the mail about mortgage protection, Just so you know, you can disregard those. You do not have to respond to those. If anybody else calls you about it, just let them know you got it all taken care of. They will try to say things to confuse you. They'll say things like your file is flagged for review, or that the underwriter made a mistake, or they work with me and they have to, look at your policy, things like that. Just let them know you're all good to go. I'm actually the only person you need to speak with regarding the mortgage protection. And just so you know, I got you set up with Americo. They are the carrier that specializes in the most comprehensive mortgage protection plans. You got the 100% for death, terminal illness, critical illness, chronic illness, and the permanent insurance with the cash value accumulation. So you're in tip-top shape. Okay, Bryce?
Okay. Sweet.
All right. And then go ahead and lock my number in. I'm going to send you my web page here for my so you have all my information and your policy number. I send them a text with that. Go ahead and save my number. And if you need anything, just give me a call or shoot me a text. You're stuck with me for life now. So anything at all, I'm just a text or a call away, okay?
Okay. Makes sense.
All right. And were you happy with my service today, Bryce?
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Cool. I'm glad. I hope that gives you some peace of mind to know that your son's protected.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's huge. I
All right.
appreciate it.
You got it. All right, Bryce. Well, God bless you and have a great day, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thorough, super thorough, right? With the tie down. That's what I noticed for me when I first started getting into telesales. Because when I was in the home, it was like, all right, I'll write it down, you're good. And I used to end the call by going, all right, cool, I'll send you a text as a summary. What you applied for is you got it. Cool. Right. But when I started adding in layers to that tie down and asking more questions and being more thorough with it, that's when my persistency went way up. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so what I like, that's one of those that you go back, you rewatch, you write down what she said, you implement that because that piece right there of when you make like to keep business on the books, everything you said, right? About posture, creating a relationship with them, laughing with them a little bit, everything's equally important. But that's something that is super like I'm just big on what's something that I can just easily duplicate every single time, no matter what. And that word track from you're approved to have a nice day, everything you implemented in between, you can do the same thing every time, right? Like we had Easton on our call last week, and he's like, "This business is hard, but it's not that hard because all it really is just kind of putting a couple paragraphs together in the right way to make it make sense and like get a client on the same page with you and make a sale." And like when you think about sales, that's what it is. It's just putting words in the right order in the right posture and tonality to get like when you break it down that simply, that's what it is. So that's just one of those things that's like super implementable from this call. Copy that when you make a sale, say what she just said. You know what I mean? That's huge. I love it. One last thing before I open up to questions. Americo. Why do you default to? Why do you write so much Americo?
Well, a couple reasons. It has all the benefits, like it really does have all the most comprehensive benefits. It has the 100% for death, terminal, critical,
For
and
like the
chronic.
IUL in term.
The IUL, the term, yeah, the Eagle Select product is now the cheapest one, and it's immediate coverage. You have the double for the accidental death benefit, which so all that's good. I mean, you have everything you need with Americo as long as you can get the person approved. Unless you have to do a higher face amount for whatever reason, then we deal with that. But the main thing is the instant issue and the instant decision, because a lot of times if you're dealing with carriers where you're having to do the back and forth with carriers and then call the client back and get different requirements filled and things like that, you can lose that person and then they don't get the coverage, you don't get paid, and then also the cash flow, like the fact that you can write a policy and get paid 2 days later is crucial. Like yes, we're here to help people, but we're also running a business, right? Like we also have to help our families. Like we have to, you know, help those who, the Lord helps those who help themselves. I don't know, but
Yeah,
like, I mean, like you can help more people if you're helping yourself first. It's like put on the oxygen mask on yourself before, you put it on the
totally.
person next to you, right? So, you getting paid is so important because you need to be able to invest in leads and grow your business and help more families. So, and then not only that, but the you first bonus, of course. Like this was my biggest you first bonus that I ever got. I don't know, these stupid screen filters, but it was $38,000,
Let's go.
right? So I like getting those bonus checks every 6 months quite a bit.
No doubt.
Yeah,
I love that. I love it. All right. Open it up to questions. What question do you guys have for her?
I got one.
sure.
Hey, this is Davis. I haven't written a policy yet, but Like how many people are you talking about? Like when people are giving their bank information, is it a traditional bank account, or do y'all accept online banking accounts, or
America does
what?
not take online banking accounts. So they have to have a normal bank to if you're going to write America, but Mutual of Omaha does. So if that's the situation, I just pivot over to Mutual of Omaha.
Okay, appreciate it.
Sure.
I got a question for you, Jana. I think all of this is awesome. But I want to know what you do to keep yourself motivated. I mean, obviously the big checks, the money, all that stuff, but I know you got kids, you got a lot of stuff going on. There's probably days where you don't want to work. What do you do to keep yourself motivated?
Well, I try to, just do a lot of self-care. Like I live near the beach, so on Sundays I really try to make sure, I'm doing something that is rejuvenating, like going to the beach or like, I like to get massages usually once or twice. Well, I was doing it like once or twice. No, I was doing it like once every week for a while, but now I go get
Oh,
them.
so at least I got rid of the box thing going.
But it's not like I'm always motivated. So like I said, I do go through my little periods of burnout where I'm just like hating life, selling insurance. Like so it's not like I'm a robot that I'm just always pumped. But certain things that do help is like making sure I'm getting good sleep every night, not like drinking alcohol too much, like just certain things like that, just like taking care of my physical well-being, going to the gym. Going to the gym really keeps me motivated. It's a great way to start the day. And then I also like using supplements and things that help me, help my brain stay focused. So, but yeah,
Awesome.
my motivation is just my goals, right? Like I'm very focused on like where I want to get to in life. So it's like until I get there, I'm just gonna keep going.
Cool. Awesome.
I have a quick question. In this example that you use, did you use the Integrity Quick Quote tool to come up with the $169 per month for a $400,000 policy? And what
Oh,
was
I
the
just
age
made
of
that.
the
Well,
potential client?
I just made that up. But yeah, I do use America
Okay.
like quoting tools, but like right now you guys should all be using Life Center because, if you write 10 apps through there, you get $1,000. So, which I've been using Life Center. There's some glitches in there, but you can get around them if you keep trying.
It's worth it for $1,000.
It's worth it. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. Can you hear me okay? I think my sound's been
Yeah,
messing up.
Yes.
Okay. So have you always done mortgage protection leads? And at what is there a certain point that you think is appropriate to switch for, because most of us come in training on final expense or vet leads?
Sure. I actually started on mortgage protection when I was at my first IMO. I was only there for like 2 months and they just did mortgage protection over there. So that's what I started on. And then when I came to FFL, I switched to final expense because that's what everybody was doing here. Um, and and then I switched back to mortgage protection just because it's typically more profitable. Um, so I've done both. I've done IUL leads at times, but I think it's good. I guess I would recommend switching to mortgage protection just because you're usually getting, two policies in every house a lot of the time. These people have jobs and income, like they are financially stable enough to be able to qualify for a mortgage. So, yeah, and then so it's just, I like it a little bit better than final expense for that reason, but
Okay. And kind of for everybody else, so they don't go out and buy mortgage protection leads without any kind of like training. What do you recommend first before a brand new agent goes out and buys mortgage protection leads?
um well, I think it's important to, get enough training on it. Like there's, mortgage protection, it's a little more of a complex sale just because you need to know how to like structure the policies according to what the person qualifies for and like their situation. Like you can't just go write an IUL on everybody for mortgage protection. Like sometimes you have to structure a final expense policy to be enough money to cover the mortgage payments for a year or two, right? And that's called equity protection. We're looking to make sure that if like if you have a 75-year-old person, you can't get them, an IUL at an affordable price. So, or they might have health issues. So now you got to take the final expense plan, turn it into something. Again, we're setting up a plan for these people, like an actual literal plan. Like we're making a plan here that we're getting you enough money to cover the mortgage payments for a year or two when you pass away so that your wife isn't struggling and she can deal with selling the house or half the time she needs to refinance and get that payment down. Okay, so it's not too complicated. Like there's just like a few things extra that you need to know with mortgage protection. So it's just kind of learning, what is equity protection, like, but it's nothing too extreme. I don't think it's that hard.
Okay, and then last thing, I know you mentioned I was switching because I had to get my kids, but you mentioned something about you don't really use a script, but do you have a script that you have written up with what you say, and would you
Yeah.
mind sharing that with
Yeah, I
me?
can share that with you guys. I'll post it in the chat.
Thank you so much.
For sure.
Hey, John, I have a question for you. It's a
Hi,
fireball, by the way. It's thank you for everything. Thank you for sharing your story. It's so fire. So I have a question for you. What is one mistake you made early on as a new agent that you would go back and just do it differently or change it?
Um, I would say probably just like not investing consistently in leads. And I mean, I really feel like that's what it is. I mean, really, we need to get in front of enough people and talk to enough people. So, like I said, I spent years actually being afraid to buy leads, like every week being afraid to buy leads. And, just getting to the point where I wasn't, afraid anymore. And I knew that that's what was going to make me money. That was the turnaround point for me. So,
Yeah,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure. Anyone else?
I got one for you.
Sure.
So are you usually doing whole life and IUL to write the mortgage protection, or is it like on Americo its own like selection?
You're asking if I use
I think he's asking if
like a
IUL.
mortgage protection
policy.
is a product. So just
So it's its own, it's not like a whole life and you just structure it for mortgage
Mortgage
protection.
protection is a concept. Okay. So mortgage protection is the concept, it's the art of structuring life insurance for the purpose of covering a mortgage. So you can use any type of life insurance policy to create a mortgage protection plan for somebody, but based on what's suited for them and what they qualify for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's more or less what they qualify for. So you could technically do an IUL or a whole life policy. It's just more
Or
based
term. I used to
upon,
do term for mortgage protection a lot until, FFL started really encouraging us to write IULs more because the persistency is better, it's better value for the client. So, but yeah, I mean,
yeah, and you get the cash
anything that
value.
makes sense for the person is, you're constructing a plan for them for mortgage protection. So that can look like different things for different people.
Okay, I appreciate it.
For sure. Anyone else?
Darren, you got a
Don't be
question?
shy.
I'm calling out Darren because he put some in the chat, so I'm gonna have him ask it. Darren has 7 Zooms going at the same time, so he's trying to figure out which one he's on.
Oh yeah, no, I was just asking, after your 90K month, did you face any difficulties? And after that, did you have any self-doubts, or was that just eliminated after your big month?
Oh no, I mean I still struggle with self-doubt sometimes. That never ends, you guys. Like the challenges that you experience at a new agent, you still experience them throughout your business. You're a human being, we're not robots, right? It's like we have days where we, don't feel like running appointments. We don't feel so confident or, we had a couple bad weeks and now it's getting to our head, right? Like that still happens to me where I'll have like a bad couple weeks or even a bad month sometimes and I'm just like, did I forget how to do this? Like, did I just forget? Like, do I need to go just watch more trainings or something and relearn? Like, I have those times. So no, it's just, you have to just, understand that there's ebbs and flows in life. Like we have, ebbs and flows with our energy and like the way we feel every day. And, that's why it's really important to have those good routines so you can, have more good days than bad days, right? But at the end of the day, we're only human, and it's just, again, it's a matter of just like being consistent, having your schedule and following it religiously every single week. Because like they say, you might have a bad week or a bad month, but you're not going to have a bad year if you're working consistently, right? You're going to make money or whatever they like to say. But
Thank you.
Huge. I appreciate it, Jonah. This was incredible. Your story is awesome. There were so many just specific takeaways. So we'll put this in our group chat. I'll put the recording on our group chat. Get the YouTube out there. So I appreciate you jumping on. If there's anything that we can do to help you, let us know.
Thank you. And I'm sharing my Instagram handle in the chat, guys. So just take a second and follow me on there. And if you guys need anything, just shoot me a message.
I love it. Well, I appreciate it. Great seeing you guys. All have a great weekend, and we'll see you later.
See you guys.